channel is Programming in Any Language. The supporting website is programminginanylanguage.com or black-duck.com. They both take you to the same place. And it's a place where you'll find the videos and PDFs of the code. The video is storing class objects in arrays. You can create multiple occurrences of a class and store resulting objects in an array. This gives you access to all the objects using a simple index. And that means you can step through the array of objects using a loop. Consequently, a banking application can be used to update the balance of thousands of customers. Likewise, you can use an array of objects to track the brand, model, and price of many products we might be selling. In this video, we're using the espresso class we saw a few videos ago. But this time, we're setting up an array to store many different espresso objects. And because of the array, we have access to the brand, model, and price of every espresso machine in our inventory. You will learn that we can easily modify the espresso application we wrote previously, allowing it to handle multiple objects. Let's check that out. Creating a class and using it once doesn't make a lot of sense. Classes are really meant to be able to take data and protect it and allow your programs to have one way in and one way out for the data, so the data is protected and can't be changed or modified by other means. Today we're going to take a look at storing class type objects in arrays and lists, primarily arrays in this particular time. And we're going to use an example to kind of demonstrate how that can be used. In other words, we're going to create a class, but we're going to be using it multiple times thanks to the array. An array can hold reference objects. For example, if we set one up with a constant integer size 4, espresso, my espresso equals new espresso with a size in here, we're going to be creating an espresso array of the class. And they'll be called my espresso 0, my espresso 1, and so on the line. And we actually create that right here with my espresso 0 equals the new espresso, my espresso 1 equals new espresso. So we've created that array size, and this actually instantiates the individual object for each element in the array, which is an object based on a class. You can use the loop to step through the array. For example, for integer index equals 0, index is less than my espresso.length, index plus plus, my espresso index equal new espresso. So in other words, while we go through this thing size 4 long, while we go through this loop 4 times, we're going to be able to create my espresso 0, 1, 2, and 3, each a new espresso class, and make it exist. You can initialize the array elements in the declaration statement. Espresso, my espresso equals, and have a set of braces here. New my espresso. I mean, you've got the form sitting here. Debit card, my bank, for example, new debit card 100, 200, 300, 400. In other words, we're passing a parameterized array, and we're giving it the balance. You'll see that in an application we're going to be doing down the road here. For example, we're going to use the espresso machine, but we're going to expand it a bit so we can see more things on it. And I've created a form, modified the form we used before in an earlier video, and changed it so that we could actually add 4 different objects into this thing. And you can see we've got everything labeled here. We got the brand, model, and price, text brand, text model, text price. That's where the data is going to be coming in. We're going to actually count how many objects we have created and give us that number right in here. So this will be LBL objects created, and this will be the create button will be sitting over here. We've got a group box 1 and 2 sitting over here collecting these things. They're not named anything different because we're not going to use those things in code, but we just wanted a group of things so we could arrange them, make them look nicer. So we got enter espresso machine data as one group, object properties will be the other group. In here we're going to have the brand, model, and price of each object in the array. Product 1, 2, 3, and 4 are going to be showing here. And that'll be called LBL brand 0, LBL model 0, LBL price 0, 1, 2, and 3 as we go down the line here. And we have an exit button as well. So it's all fairly straightforward how we're actually going to do this thing. Looking at a hierarchy chart of how this thing might look, we've got a form load, and in there we're going to try and display the count. We're going to have a create objects button, which is going to get espresso data and display a count. We're going to have the display objects, and we're going to have an exit. The subtleties or the detail of each of these particular objects right up here, or these methods up here, is unknown. We're going to be coding that. We're going to be creating that as we go. This is basically the form we want, or the layout we want of this form that we see right here. Create objects, display objects, form load, exit. That will allow us to actually work with this data. So now we got to think about this a little bit. What's it all going to look like? Well, we're going to have an espresso machine class. And it's unchanged. You've seen this one before. We're going to be using the same class we created before in an earlier video. We have class espresso. We have the brand, model, and price of 0 sitting in here for the constructor. And we have get and sets for the brand, model, and price. Nothing fancy here at all. And we're using the shorthand version of this thing. In the form global area, we're going to have a counter. Int counter is going to equal to -1. In other words, we're going to loop through this thing. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add 1 to int counter to create 0. That'll be our array number 0, 1, 2, and 3. We're going to actually create 4 objects in our array. So we want to start that out with 0. So we have our int count set for -1. We're also going to have a display count, int display count, which is going to be equal to 0. This will be 1 greater than int count because we're going to display this for the user. The user is going to see when we create 1 object, we're going to have to display a 1 there, not a 0, but a 1. And our constant, integer size 4, is going to be the size of our array. We're just putting this in for the purpose of creating this particular example. We can make it 20, we can make it a variable, we can make it anything we wanted to, but this is going to just show us that we can create more than 1 object in our array. The espresso array, my espresso equals new espresso size. So 4 is going to go in here. So this is going to create our espresso array of 4 elements, 0, 1, 2, and 3, called my espresso in the new espresso size. And we'll be able to create these on the fly as we need them. Form load in our program is going to do nothing more than display our count. I have a method here because we're going to be using display count in a couple of other, at least one other instance as well. When we actually create each record, we want to display it. But we also want to come in and establish a 0 in the form load so we know nothing's actually sitting there. The display count does nothing more than take int counter, add 1 to it, and display the count. In other words, that array number, 0, 1, 2, and 3, is going to have 1 added to it so we can display the actual count. Then we display it in our label on the form. Our Create Objects button is going to increment the counter. So when we first come in here, we're going to increment it by 1. So remember we set it for a -1. So when we first create it, int counter is going to be equal to a 0. We're going to add 1 to it. That means my espresso int counter, my espresso 0, is going to be equal to new espresso. That's going to be our first object we're going to create. We're then going to get espresso data. So we're going to pass my espresso int counter. We're going to pass that object to another method, which is going to allow us to fill it with the text data. Then when that's done, it comes back to this thing. We're going to say if int counter is greater than or equal to 3. In other words, if we've finished up, we're going to turn off all our text buttons and turn off our button create button so we can't do it anymore because we've filled it. And we're going to display our count. So we're using our display count right here again. This is that get espresso data method we're using. You can see that the espresso object is being passed this thing. Remember, it's an array object, but it's being passed as an object. So machine is fine right here. Bring in as machine. We did no changes to the class, so we can just use it as is. Our decimal is equal to DEC price. We're going to set up a variable here. Then our machine.brand, machine brand, will be equal to textbrand.text. Model, text model.text. And we do the same thing we did before in our other video, where we take our decimal, we try parse it to see that it is indeed a valid decimal number, or a number that can be converted to a decimal, and we end up the decimal price is now equal to machine price, and that brings that in. So the 3 pieces get brought into the class object here. Otherwise, we show an invalid message price, and we say int counter is equal to int counter -1. In other words, if we were unsuccessful here, we're going to subtract that counter and go back, and the get button will have to be done again to actually create it. So in other words, we'll create no object if we end up with an invalid price. We then clear the text boxes and set our focus on the text brand so that we can start all over again and start entering data. Our display objects button is kind of interesting. We could display everything at the end of this and display it all, but I'd like it to say that I want to be able to press the display object button at any time. So it's always going to, when I hit the button display, it's going to go through an if statement in each particular thing to say if its int counter is greater than -1, in other words, it's 0 or better, we can at least do this. If it's greater than 0, we can do this one. If it's greater than 1, we can do this one. If it's greater than 2, we can do this one. So in other words, it won't fill in the labels if we've only done 1 or 2 adds. If we've done all 4, all of these things will actually evoke, and we'll be able to see that and test that in a bit. We're going to do this by making some changes to this guy right here. What I'm going to do is I want to change this form so we can add all the things that we did in our slide presentation to add the other object properties in here and make this thing work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the size of this form to 699 and 489 is perfectly fine. So I'm going to widen it a little bit. That's all I'm going to do here. I'm then going to take my group button, bottom group button here, and I'm going to change its size to 628 and 173. We have more room for those particular pieces right now. I'm going to lower this a little bit. And lay in the product names, which I may put about here. In fact, I might slide them over a little bit, right over the top of that. I'm then going to take labels and lay them over here. Now I've got to name all these guys. We're going to change this name to label brand 0. The same thing with the models, going to be model 0. And price is going to be price 0. When I brought these over, they're already setting with 1s, 2s, and 3s in the names. So I can actually get at these guys and use them. I'm going to kind of line these guys up a little bit. I'm going to take these guys right here and kind of lower them a little bit so they're much like that. I think I'm actually looking pretty good here. Let's go ahead and do this. Let's format and align the centers. There it is. That makes that look nice. And up here, we're going to actually extend this particular object as well. It's this group button. We're going to make this guy 332. And 158 is fine on there. So let's expand that. And then I can create these two objects and bring our create object button right up here and run this up a bit. And looks somewhat reasonable right now. Our exit button will go over here. And we'll create another button down here called Display Objects. And look at this lined up with the exit button just fine. This is called Display Objects, button display. This is called button exit. And we've got our create objects things right here. So we're looking pretty good here as far as the code goes. Now, as far as the form goes, we've got a bunch of form from our old program sitting in here, which is not going to work correctly, but we can use some of it to make some modifications to make this thing work fine. Our espresso class is sitting over here, and that's fine. We don't need to touch this. We're going to be using it for 4 objects instead of 1. We don't have anything in the global area, so we're going to be able to create the global area right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some pieces in there and actually establish that. So what I'm going to do is put in my counters and lay them in right here, my global area. And what I've done is I've created my int counter and set it to -1. So my counter for data input is going to be sitting right in here. The next thing I did is I created my int display count, making that equal to 0. We're going to use this for displaying how many objects were actually created. We're going to have our constant sitting here, which is going to be equal to 4. So we're going to create 4. And then we actually establish our espresso array right here. By espresso, with brackets, my espresso equals new espresso of a size of 4. So we're going to bring that count right in here and make that all happen. So that's going to create our array that we can now create individual objects for. So once that's done, we need to then go to the form load area and display our count. So we're going to go to form load. How do we get form load? We don't have form load here, so we're going to go to the form and just click on it. That creates a form load area. And now all we have to do here is simply say display count. And we'll go out here and give it a name and say we're going to display current count. That's great. That works out just fine. That means you need to create that method as well. So what we'll do is right here is we'll actually create that method. So right under here, we're going to say private. And we're going to say int display count is equal to int counter plus 1. It's going to set the display counter. And then we're going to say LBL objects created.text is equal in display count to string. And that will actually place our number in this area right in here. Objects created are going to sitting right in here. So that's all we have to do there. Why don't we have this thing out of place here? Oh, because we've got the int here, display count. Get rid of that int. There we go. Now we got it set right. And I want to bring this thing out one more time. That's looking better. Okay, good. We then need to look at our Create Objects button. That's right in here. We've got some code in there. What do we want to do? Well, the first thing we want to do is we want to increment the counter here, because we're going to be going into this thing for the first time. Each time we do it, we're going to increment a count. So we're going to say int counter is equal to int counter plus 1. Increment counter when adding to array. And right here we've got espresso, my espresso, new espresso. We want to change this slightly. We're going to say my espresso int counter is equal to new espresso. Add a new object to the array. Let's bounce all these out a little bit. So my espresso int counter equals new espresso. We have an error now because we also have it expressed here, so we actually want to get rid of that. We don't need this particular line anymore. So we're not going to create the new espresso thing because we're doing so in our array. We already did that. So we're going to get rid of this line completely. That's unnecessary. And then we're going to say get espresso data my espresso. We're not going to pass it my espresso. We need to pass it the element in the array. So we need int counter in here as well. And just comment good. Call espresso, call get espresso. Yes, it does. It's first thing. Our error is gone now, so we're fine there. So we're in good shape here. Now I want to say something. I want to actually give myself some space right now. And I want to say if int counter is greater than or equal to 3, I want button create enabled equal to false. That's going to be when 4 objects are filled, close the ability to add more. We don't want to add any more once we got our 4 created. We also want to say our txt brand dot enabled is equal to false. Txt model enables false. And txt price is also false. So all those text boxes will then be turned off and gotten rid of. We don't need those anymore. And then we're going to display our count. So whether or not we have the 3 or not, we're still going to be displaying the count. I could actually put this up before the if statement if I wanted to, because we have that sitting there at that point in time. But that's okay. It's sitting down here. So we display our count. What about this display data here? We won't use this anymore because we're going to be using it in the display method we're going to be creating up here. We have this display objects piece we're going to need. So we're going to be able to use that there. So this is going to be pulled. So we now need to go to our get espresso data and see what that looks like. Here's our get espresso machine piece right here. And this is fine. Get espresso data is fine. It's getting that machine. How's it getting it? Well, we're passing it my espresso int counter. We're expressing one object is getting passed to this area right up in here. So it's coming through. This is perfectly fine, what we've got here. It'll grab those pieces. The if machine try parse is going to be fine. We're going to get the valid price. Else, we're going to say message box show invalid display error. We want to add something here though. We want to also say that int counter is equal to int counter minus 1. Subtract from counter. Why? Well, because if we failed here with the price, we're not going to be putting anything out there. We want to say we didn't add any object. Here we added an object someplace along the line. Right in here is where we added that object. If we fail to do this in the get express counter, we want to decrement this counter so we still have the ability to be under that count. So we're doing that here. And then once we've done that, we want to clear all these text boxes. So after our, whether or not we've succeeded or not in creating something, we still want to be able to say txt brand dot text is equal to nulls. Clear text boxes. Txt model dot text is equal to quote quote. Txt price dot text is equal to quote, quote, and txt brand dot focus. We want to set the focus of that thing so the user is ready to go in and start keying. Now, we want to create a new one called display objects. I think we're all set here. This looks like it's just fine. We're going to go to our form and click on display objects. And there's our set for it. We're going to simply say here, display the data at any time. Routine checks each object. Then we're going to say if int counter is greater than -1, we're going to do something. What are we going to do? We're going to display the data. We'll just grab that code we have up here, pop it in here, get rid of this label here. And what we're going to say, though, is LVL brand 0.text is equal to my espresso 0.brand. My espresso 0.model. And my espresso 0 price to string. And that will print the first object. We can then say if int counter is greater than 0. We can do the same thing, but this time it'll be ones. And we really have 2 more to do, so we're going to basically copy this and make some changes. This will be a 1. This will be a 2. It's greater than 2 will be a 3, so 0, 1, 2, 3. And we'll change this to 2s. And these will be 3s down here, as you can see. That's the extent of it. So, the big question is, will this work? Looks like our program's all set to go. Let's give it a try. Comes up nicely. 0 objects are created. Our brand is sitting up here. I think that's one thing we want to do is be able to check these objects. I'm going to actually escape here, and I want to look at the tab indexes of these particular things. I want this guy to be a tab index of 0. This one, a 1. This one, a 2. And the create object, I want to be a 3. And we should be fine. Do a file save. We'll take a look at some espresso machines they might have on Amazon. You can see they got a bunch of different models here. We'll use these to actually key some in. So we'll grab this. And our first product will be KitchenAid. And it'll be the model KES 6551JP. And its price is $599.99. I'll create that object. Nothing else happens. It's out there in the array. And we could actually display it right now, but I'm not going to. I'm going to display it after I do a second one. Let's look at the Philips. This is called the 16-bar pump. And its price is $399.95. We'll add it. 2 objects have been created. Have we got them out there? We display them? Yeah, indeed. They're showing up right here. My display object goes through that list of if statements and does show them on here. So we're actually seeing those 2 things out in the array. Let's create another one. How about the KitchenAid KF6? It's $1099.99. We'll create that object. And we'll create one more, as we can only create one more. How about this model, KISMILE, and this is going to be called the 15-bar espresso. 15-bar espresso. And its price will be $319.99. Create the object. When I did that, we got our 4. The create object button gets unenabled, so I can't do anymore. And my text boxes go away. I can't actually type any more of those things. But my data is sitting inside my array right now. And if I display all those objects, bang, all of them do come up. So I still have all 4 objects created in memory based on my class. And I could actually set something up in the program to allow me to select any one of these. So KitchenAid, Philips, KitchenAid, and Kismeal, all 4 of those things are showing there, and it looks just perfectly fine. So that's basically using an array to collect your data in a nutshell. If you sit back and think about this a little, it means we can store all kinds of objects in arrays. Think about text boxes, labels, and buttons. We could easily save multiple occurrences of any of these and have different properties in each, like location and size. Well, we can do something similar using a list of objects as well. We'll take a look at that next. Thanks for watching. Visit the website when you get a chance. And please subscribe to the channel. There's more stuff coming every week. We'll see you in the next video. Take care.